Welcome to another video, ladies and gentlemen. So we're going to talk about this situation right here with the Mississippi 6. I recall hearing about this earlier this year, and then, like so many of these stories, it kind of just, gets pushed under the rug for a while and kind of goes, out of sight, out of mind, because there's so much other things that's going on at the same time. Now that everything has come out, everything has come to light, as you can see, these men are all in their prison regalia, right? In their jail outfits, so to speak. They paraded them in front of the court. They all have like duct tape on the back, right? So you can't see what county jail they're in. You could just see that four of them have like navy. The other two are in some type of white and red. So maybe if you know where that's at, then you might know where they're being held. Hopefully they're being put in a cell with Bubba, the booty bandit, or the booty warrior. One would only hope, right? Although you know how it goes with these brotherhoods, right? They take care of their own. They'll probably be thrown in solitary, so, the other inmates won't wipe the floor with them every time they see them. But c'est la vie. But let's talk about it, though. Because one thing I hate is these so-called black Republicans that come on YouTube, specifically draped in the flag, talking about, if you just comply, you're going to be all right. Just comply. The so-called black conservatives, the ex-officers, the ones with the large platforms that come on here talking all that shit, right? What they really are, some coon-ass tap dancing, some bitch no good Negroes. That's what they really are. And if I really had to talk about how I feel, maybe I might not be able to upload this video successfully. But I digress. Let's move forward. You have a scenario here where these men, right? And I use that term very loosely because these guys are thugs. These guys are animals. Right? The same way these black conservatives would come on here and talk about people that look like them. These guys are black, but they want to be white so bad because their base is white that a story like this will come and they'll just, act like it didn't happen. Right? Just let it fly by, talk about everything else under the sun. And then when the left talks about police reform, then you have them saying, oh, it's crazy liberals. I myself am a conservative, far from being a leftist. But this right here, this is why you cannot just give carte blanche. Come online saying, oh, you have to back the blue. Tell me how is it exactly you're supposed to comply with being tortured? How do you comply with being tortured? Let me give a rundown of the situation. So what happens is one of these guys gets basically a call, right, from some nosy neighbor who I can only assume is very racist themselves, saying that, there's a couple of black guys over at such and such house and they need to go check it out. But you know what that phone call is really like. Because what is the suspicious behavior? Is it because they're there or were they really doing something suspicious? Because as far as I can read through what I've looked at, the only thing suspicious was the fact that they were there. Again, you must know what that phone call sounded like. Hey, there's a couple of niggers over at Mary Jo's house. You need to go teach them boys a lesson. And here we go with this dummy, right, texting the Goon Squad, because that's what they're called. Now, if you make a phone call to the head of the Goon Squad, you know they have that name for a reason. So here he goes, rounding up his boys. Hey, y'all up for a mission in that? Again, this happened in Mississippi, so I'm trying to, put the southern drawl on it as much as possible. Yeah, y'all up for a mission in that? In other words, get, the four-wheel drives, the white sheets, get your tiki torches, This sound like some Klan shit. And you know what? Honestly, if it was the Klan, I would have understood. Right? Because this is what you expect from the Klan. But these guys are cops, right? Supposedly, right? The ones that bathe themselves in the flag and, all about law, order, and, justice for these them. This guy gets a call from a neighbor. Hey, there's two black guys over at such and such house. Think it's suspicious. Go check it out. He rounds up his troops, tells them, yeah, we need to go to such and such house, but I think there's surveillance, so avoid that. Going through the side door, the back door, the carport door, whatever door it is that, you won't be seen on camera. They do that, go into this woman's house, immediately ask these guys where the drugs at. Now, I don't know what it is about cops and black folks and drugs. I mean, after the crack era, you guys see like now it's not a black thing, right? It's like Dave Chappelle said, in Ohio, people you see on there's a lot of white folks on drugs, right? A lot of them. Philly, right? L.A., Miami. These people act like the only people that do drugs are black people. Ask them for the drugs. Obviously, they don't know what these guys are talking about. These cops proceed to beat these men, tase them, pour milk and honey on them, throw eggs at them. I mean, the guy picked up a dildo and threatened to use it on them, beat them with it. I mean, all sorts of just evil things that, like, why would you do this to a person? And we're not talking about somebody that actually committed a crime. First of all, you send them, like, to this person's house based off a phone call that has no information but suspicious behavior. What's suspicious? Because they're black sitting on the porch? Is that it? That's enough? You have no warrant, so you tell them to go in and basically barge in, break the door down, whatever the case is. You don't need one. All right, fine. Maybe in a case where, it's a suspected dealer, right? Whether it's drugs, firearms, maybe suspected of human trafficking. Maybe you've had surveillance on them for a while, right? In cases like that, I can understand when, the lead detective or the higher up say, listen, we need to go in with a no knock warrant and take them by surprise, because if we do, they'll flush shit down the toilet, they'll destroy evidence, things like that. In these situations, we have an understanding why it's a no knock. But we've seen before that leads to problems, right? These idiots go into the wrong house, they have people handcuffed, then come to find out it's the wrong person, mistaken identity, all kinds of BS, right? So it's not a good idea overall, even if it sounds good on paper, right? All these things transpire up to, as I said, a man being shot in the mouth. It said the bullet lacerated his tongue, broke his jaw, went out through his neck, some crazy thing like that. But then you have these, as I said, and I prefer to talk about the black ones because to me it's very telling. I don't care how white your base is. This should not even be an issue of a difference in ethnicity. It's just wrong, like, period. Like, I would not want this to happen to a white family at the hands of black cops, but I wouldn't want it to happen to anyone, period. And that's why I don't think people understand. Like, it's not, yes, in this case, it is seemingly a case of racism, right? Because the woman was white and somehow These guys are there telling them that, hey, y'all don't belong here. Y'all not on your side of this town. Now, see, when people who the black conservatives and others will call liberals came out and said, hey, Jason Aldean's song it has that dog whistle to these sorts of people, and they refer to the good old boys, the kinds that run you out of town by a certain time. Black conservatives and the white say, oh, y'all just jealous and, y'all making stuff up. Now come to find out this is precisely what was being told to these men, like y'all don't belong here. Now this isn't the 60s, 50s, 40s, 30s. This happened January of 2023. This didn't happen 60, 70, 80 years ago. This happened 8 months ago. I'll read some of it so you get, the gist of what happened. How the abuse and shooting unfolded. According to a federal charging document, Dedmon texted Edward Middleton and Opdyke on January 24th about going to the property in Braxton to resolve a complaint received by McAlpin. McAlpin's white neighbor told him several black men were staying at a white woman's home and reported seeing suspicious behavior. Dedmon warned the deputies there might be surveillance cameras on the property, telling them to knock on the door instead of kicking it down if they saw any, the document stated. Otherwise, they could barge in without a warrant, the document continued. No bad mug shots, he said, meaning prosecutors said the defendants could use excessive force on parts of the body that would not be seen in a mugshot. According to the charging document, Dedmon told the others Hatfield would accompany them. Avoiding a surveillance camera from the front door, Dedmon, Opdyke, and Elwood broke open the carport door while Hatfield kicked open the back door, the document stated. They encountered Parker, who was living there to help take care of a woman who owned the property, and his friend Jenkins, who was staying there temporarily. Over the next 2 hours, the two men were subjected to grueling violence at the hands of the white officers, the document said. They were repeatedly tased and called racial slurs, and the officer poured milk, alcohol, and chocolate syrup in their mouths. Elwood threw eggs at the men, and Dedmon poured grease on Parker's head, according to the document. Eventually, Elwood removed a bullet from his gun, forced Jenkins onto his knees, and put the gun into his mouth, the document stated. Elwood fired the gun, which did not discharge, then racked the slide, put the gun back in Jenkins' mouth, and pulled the trigger again, according to the document. The bullet lacerated Jenkins' tongue, broke his jaw, and went out through his neck. According to the charging document, the officers then devised a cover story and discussed planting a gun Middleton had in his patrol car on Jenkins. Instead, Elwood planted a BB gun, and the officers discarded one shell casing. The document stated, Hatfield threw the men's soiled clothes in the woods and took the hard drive from the home surveillance system before throwing it in a creek, according to the document. So, not only did they do this, they tried to cover the tracks. Like, these men didn't just experience what they experienced. So, in other words, nothing happened. Right? By throwing the surveillance away, by doing all these things, it's like, oh, well, nothing happened. Now, when you have officers that would do that, and then people claim you have to back the blue because, it's not all officers. Do you think this is the first instance that these guys were involved in something like this? Just honestly. Did they just go from 0 to 100 that one night? Logically speaking and using deductive reasoning, in a case where there was no crime being committed, you would have to think, I don't think so. I think it's probably been done before. But of course, they're the Goon Squad, all 6 of them are white, and, what's going to be done? I hope all the back the blue types, I hope one day this happens to you. One day it's going to be you that it happens to. And hopefully, while they're taking your battered, bruised, and defiled body in an ambulance to a hospital to try to get treated, you end up in a 5-car pileup with no survivors but you. The next ambulance they send is going to have 4 flat tires and no spare. By the time you do get to the hospital, doctor that attends to you is going to be a junkie, right? With a $500 a day habit and a 1,000-pound silverback gorilla on his back, with a rusty scalpel in his hand and the whole operating theater going up in fire. Until it actually happens to you, these people seem to have zero empathy for people that are manhandled, brutalized, and beaten by police. And this is why when the left calls for reform, I try to see it from their point of view, because there's some cases that are just you if you actually train to do this, then it's a systemic problem, right? If you weren't trained to do this, then the system in place for vetting you to be a police is actually broken. It's one or the other. It's either you were trained to do that or you weren't vetted properly, because, 6 of you there together, not one person steps in and says, I ain't gonna be part of this shit. I'm out. To where are the situations where the good cop steps in? And if you're not gonna step in because you're afraid for your life, then obviously you shouldn't be in that job. That's what it comes down to. Everybody seems to agree that, there's a need, quote unquote, for having police to, quell situations where there's riots and, but look at what's happening in Los Angeles. People looting stores en masse, nothing being done. All right, people coming across the border illegally, nothing being done. So, what state are we in? Yeah, this story is troubling. It is very troubling. And I hope these guys get what they deserve. Hopefully they'll be put in the cell with Bubba the Booty Bandit. Take care of him real good. Until next time, folks. Be good. Be careful. Be watchful. And stay strapped. I'm out. Peace.